What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Big Five Pod, episode number 81. Cope, it feels like it has been so long since we recorded an episode because we had the live show. Took about, a little bit more time than normal to record this one because we had the tournament and some other things come up. So it's been a while, but how we feeling?
Yeah, feeling good. Crazy how time flies. I mean, that live show feels like forever ago. I was even thinking, I was like, when the hell was the last time we got on here to talk?
Yeah.
But good to be back. A lot of good hoops on. The tournament never disappoints. I know your feelings towards this tournament might be a little different from mine, but
We'll
tournament
talk
never
about it.
disappoints. Always a bunch of crazy stuff going on, crazy upsets. Every time I fill out a bracket, I'm like, what if they all win? What if I hit every single one? But you know you're never going to, which is the beautiful thing about it. So much chaos as always. Um, Elite Eight games were today and yesterday. Our Final Four is set. So hey, we're really down the home stretch here, Kyle. We have 3 games left, and that's not including the NIT that does not really deserve any of our attention right now.
No. And it won't get any of our attention, so we're gonna move past it. Yeah, I mean, I think our feelings might be a little bit different in general, I guess, about it. Like, I think there's been some good games. I think, you know, like I can't complain about that. There's always excitement. I mean, obviously we had Oakland upsetting Kentucky, which was amazing. Jack Golke going off for I think it was 10 3-pointers in the first round of the tournament. That was insane. The Sanford Kansas game, which obviously most of these games we were watching together, but the Sanford Kansas game where we stayed up till like 1 in the morning watching with all my roommates and that elevator set that they ran, that was the most insane inbounds play. And I questioned it at first because I had no idea what was going on, but it was insane. There's been good moments, but I think overall it's been like it feels like it hasn't been as like I don't want to say exciting. It just feels like it hasn't given me as much as it usually gives me. Does that make sense?
Sure.
And I know your team went further than most people's teams, although they did lose in the last game that has happened so far. So we're gonna hold this for a second. But anyway, like I don't know, and maybe it's just because my bracket didn't do well, and I'm a little disappointed about that because I didn't pick UConn to go nearly as far as I know you'll make fun of me for in a second here. Like I think Houston should be in the Final Four right now, but Jamal Shed gets hurt very early against Duke. I think they definitely win that game because they almost did anyway. Without him, I think they definitely win with him, and then I think they beat NC State. Um, I think matchup wise, I think that would be a terrible matchup for NC State, as most teams are against Houston. But yeah, it's felt a little bit of a weird-ish tournament. Maybe again just because of my bracket not doing so well, but it just hasn't felt like it has had the same aura as it did maybe last year or a few years ago. But that's just me. But anyway, we're gonna get into it. First things first, obviously we have to talk about Cope. DJ Burns and the NC State Wolfpack are in the Final Four as an 11 seed. We have to talk about this run they went on because 16 days ago, or no, I think it was 19 days ago, the day of this recording, which is Sunday night, they were down and almost out. I think they came back against Louisville in the ACC tournament in the first round. They beat Syracuse. They ended up beating Duke, which everyone was surprised about. Duke was the number 2 seed in the ACC tournament. And then they have an absolute March miracle against Virginia in the ACC semis. Virginia misses a free throw that would have put them up 4. They go down the court. O'Connell hits a bank in 3 to send them to overtime. They win in overtime. They come back from a halftime deficit to beat North Carolina, the number 1 seed in the ACC championship, and they just keep winning. They have not stopped winning, and especially their last 2 performances, beating number 2 Marquette, who we obviously know a lot about that team covering Villanova in the Big East, and they are a phenomenal team, and it just kind of fell apart for them. They went 4 for 31 for 3-point line, which you're not going to win when you shoot that way. And then beating your Blue Devils, Cope. I mean, it was and being down at halftime in that one as well too. So I want to hear your thoughts about this Wolfpack because I know in the more, I don't know, probably in the last like 20 years or so, we've seen more 11 seeds make these runs like this. Obviously, George Mason, you had Loyola, VCU back in the day too, and of course UCLA a few years ago. So it's happening more often now, but it's still like an extremely rare feat, and I think that needs to be recognized. So I want to hear your thoughts on the Wolfpack and how the heck are they keep pulling this off?
Yeah, I don't know. And I'm not gonna take credit for that because all I had them doing was beating Texas Tech and winning 1 game because I thought the Kentucky would be there to see them, and sure enough, they didn't. But I told a couple people, I was like, just told one of our trainers at Penn, I was like, they haven't a 2021 Oregon State feel to them. They just feel like a team that's screaming hot that, yeah, they had to win 4 games in 4 days at the ACC tournament, but that you didn't want to
Five and
play.
five.
And yeah, sure enough, they do that. Now they've won 4 games in the NCAA tournament, but DJ Burns is scorching hot. And the thing is, he puts you in such a bind on defense because of how good he is as a passer. Like Duke hardly doubled. They hardly even stunted at him sometimes. It was just Ryan Young and Filipowski guarding him, who, Filipowski's not really a traditional five. He does a whole bunch of other things that are great, but I wouldn't say his best fit is like a center. Um and Ryan Young is having to go up against him too, and they both foul out, and Mark Mitchell fouls out today. Like he's such a force to guard one on one because you let him get to his spot, you let him get to his left hand over his right shoulder, and I mean he wasn't missing today. I think he had damn near 30 points. If he did, I think he did hit it 30 points today, but it's just so hard because he's such a good passer. You double him, he'll find somebody, and good luck trying to guard him one on one. And DJ Horn had a really good game today. O'Connell's been good. Casey Morsell how about Casey Morsell? 2 years at Virginia. He was on that team that missed the tournament. Was it not last year, the year before?
The year before,
Yeah.
yeah.
And now he's at NC State, and here they are in a Final Four. So everybody's been good. DR has been good. Like it's just it is an insane run that is I think this is a reason that like you still want conference tournaments, and that the regular season winner shouldn't be awarded a bid, because here's the downside to it. I'm at the A10 tournament. I asked Chris Mooney about the Richmond Spiders. They have a banner year pretty much. They win at least a share of the regular season title in the Atlantic 10. They have one of the best seasons in the history of Richmond basketball. But because they had a bad Wednesday 11:30 a.m. tip against St. Joe's, their season's over, and they have to play in the NIT. But the upside is you take a team like NC State. You look at that Oregon State team that went on the run in 2021. It gives them one last shot. Hey, forget about how bad you were in the regular season. You could have lost a bunch of games, lost by games, had a bad record in conference play. You got one more shot. And if you can get hot, you just got to take it one game at a time. And if you get hot, you can get yourself in the tournament, and then it's anybody's game. So Kevin Keatts was on the hot seat. Really, they lose that Louisville game, or they probably get to, if they lose in the quarterfinals to Duke, he's probably fired. And here he is, wins the ACC tournament, gets a 2-year extension, and now they're in the Final Four. It's crazy, but Kyle, that's why it's the best sport in the world. It's unpredictable. You'll never be able to predict what's going to happen. I mean, who even thought this team would have been in
Yeah.
even 16 days ago? Because they lose if they don't go up, if they don't have a perfect run, they're out. So it's really really quite the run. But here's the thing: they're confident, man. They're hot. 9 games in the last 19 days they won. It's crazy, or however many days it's been. It's crazy. But you take a team like that, they're playing with so much confidence. They're playing so well. They have a star in America's sweetheart right now in DJ Burns, and they think they can beat anybody. Kyle, they think they're the best team in the country. So it's quite the run, and I think that's why. Even though they beat Duke today, and I'm very upset about that, I still think this tournament has delivered and then some, because you have a story like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's at least the saving grace, I think, of this, is because there's definitely been some things that I haven't been personally happy with. Like personally, I don't like Purdue. I don't like the way that, Edey gets officiated, and that's a discussion for another day. But NC State's been the saving grace of this tournament. We obviously all love Cinderellas. That's what makes March March. Um, and listen, it's not like they've had cupcakes either. I mean, the Texas Tech team, that was a pretty solid team. I mean, they had some questions, but they were a pretty solid team. Oakland had just beaten Kentucky, and I know they missed out on playing Kentucky, and maybe it goes differently if Kentucky wins that game, but they didn't. Oakland earned the right to be there, and they almost blew that lead against Oakland, and they went to overtime, and then they prevailed in overtime, and then they beat two really, really, really good teams, elite teams in Marquette and Duke. So it's not like they just, cupcaked their way to the Final Four. You can't do that as an 11th seed. They beat a 6 seed, a 4 seed, and a 2 seed, and the team that went crazy against a 3 seed and took them to overtime. They've earned it. They've absolutely earned it. So shout out to Kevin Keatts and NC State. It's just a remarkable feat. And Listen, DJ Burns versus Zach Edey in the Final Four. You want to talk about two very different play styles. I am very, very excited to see that one. I do think Purdue will win, but uh, that's going to be a heck of a matchup for sure. Yeah, I mean, this tournament's been it's been an interesting one. Obviously, we talked about Purdue getting in there. UConn, shocker, they made the Final Four. Who could have ever seen that coming? Certainly nobody picked against them on this podcast. So, you know what? Before we even get into the Alabama, Clemson, Elite Eight, and everything in that bracket, Cope, I'm gonna let you give it to me. We've been texting about it all week. I know I picked Auburn over UConn. They didn't even make it out of the first round. So,
Yeah, I heard that the defending champs would not make it past the Sweet 16 if they had to play Bruce Pearl's Auburn team. And it was funny, Kyle, because I didn't see Bruce Pearl coaching on a sideline this weekend. I saw him on TV on the halftime panel. Why is that? Because they lost to Yale in the first round. So, look, upsets happen, but UConn, it was a shoe and they were going to beat the crap out of Stetson.
yeah,
And then they beat Northwestern, who's really good. They completely shut down Boo Boo. He took him out of the game. They throttled my San Diego State Aztecs by 30 points, who are a really, really good team. And San Diego State was playing pretty well in that first half,
yeah,
and UConn just couldn't make anything. They were winning on the offensive glass. They just couldn't make anything. Um, and then just a domination of Illinois and Brad Underwood saying, "Oh, well, we haven't they haven't run anything that we haven't seen in the Big Ten." And then they go on a 30-0 run and just steamroll them and just continued to pound the ball at Donovan Clingan, who had 5 or 6 blocks in that game. Like I don't not really sure what they were going for there.
I could tell you what they were going for. They were trying to get Klingon in foul trouble. It just didn't work.
Yeah, it just didn't work because he's really really good on defense and
Yeah,
he's enormous. Besides Edey, he's the biggest guy in the tournament. Like I
yeah.
don't really know about that strategy. I guess from that point, but then like when you're down 30, like, hey, are we, did we think that maybe wasn't going to work? We were going to try something else. I don't know. But yeah, UConn, if you had any doubts, I don't think anybody's going to beat them. Give us a UConn Purdue championship game. I think that's what we deserve. I think there's been a clear tier above the rest. It's UConn, Purdue, Houston. I'm not really going to get too much in the Houston injury. I just want to say that, yes, I do think Jamal Shedd plays. They beat Duke. I mean, Duke was struggling to score when he was out there. I think they had 7 or 9 points while Jamal Shedd played in that game. He really doesn't come out. And Calvin Sampson I feel bad for the guy because they're a force in the regular season and then something happens or guys get hurt. I mean, with Shedd being out, you look at Shedd, Terrence Arsenault, Joseph Tugler, like he's down 3 rotation players then for injuries through the season. So unfortunate there. But give us a Purdue and a UConn national championship. Give Purdue a shot at redemption here. They made the first Final Four since 1980 today. So give them a shot at a redeem team title here and have them play the defending champs. I think that's the rubber match that we all want. That would be a ratings bomb for the NCAA.
Klingon versus Edey would be
I
just
think
in
that's what at that point you should be rooting for that. I think that's what you're going to get.
yeah. I mean, you want to talk about the only two people, maybe outside of Ryan Kalkbrenner, which that would have been a really interesting Elite Eight matchup if Creighton would have prevailed against Tennessee. Like the only two people who you could definitively say could match up against the other one. Other than, like I said, Kalkbrenner, who's another 7-footer and a very good player in his own right. But like, oh my God, that would be an incredible matchup. Two 7-footers. Obviously, Klingon or Edey's got the height advantage over Klingon, but I think Klingon has a skill advantage over Edey. In general, obviously Edey going to be back-to-back National Player of the Year. He's earned it, even though I don't love the way that his game is officiated. That's a discussion for another day. But Klingon is someone who can give him a problem, and vice versa, obviously. So that's going to be a really interesting matchup if that does happen. Like I said, the DJ Burns Edey matchup is going to be a really fun one. I think, obviously, I do think Purdue will prevail in that one. But I've been saying that against every team that NC State's played so far, except for Texas Tech. So I don't know. I don't know. We're gonna find out real quickly. Yeah, the Auburn game though. I mean, that was just they just found a way to lose that game. Now, granted, Yale gets credit. They kept it close to even be in the position to take advantage of Auburn's mistakes or whatever, but I think they missed I think it was three shots and four free throws in like the final minute or two to let Yale win that game. It's just I don't even have words for it, Cope, to be honest with you. And I know it's the Bruce Pearl thing, and that's one of the narratives of some of the coaches, of one of those coaches in college basketball that has narratives of can win the big one, even though he did make a Final Four a few years ago. Matt Painter was in that category, and now he's made a Final Four, which I am very happy for Matt Painter. Um, yeah, it was just bad. And I think Auburn beats that San Diego State team if they win. And then that would have been a really intriguing matchup. And yeah, it just stinks that it didn't play out that way. I picked the wrong four seed to go far. Uh, and I did like that Duke team too. But as terms of talent, I hate Duke. Don't ever get that twisted. But yeah, it's been a really, really interesting tournament so far. I think it would be a treat if we saw Purdue and UConn in the finals. But listen, and UConn's gonna have to face an Alabama team that's scorching hot right now too. Um, that will be an interesting one because Grant Nelson's a matchup problem for any team. They've got guard play. Nate Oates loves to have those guys running up and down the floor. They really only take threes or shots around the basket. And I think if there's anything that can beat UConn, it's going to be teams getting hot from 3-point range. So while I don't think Alabama's going to win because they don't play a lick of defense, I think it's going to be an interesting game.
They started playing defense the last two games out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That's the
Against
thing.
UNC and
It's
Clemson.
crazy to me. They actually played like pretty good defense in the North Carolina game. Like, can you ever predict anything in this tournament?
No, you can't cope. You
They
can't.
still like they get to March and then it's like, hey, we have to flip the switch now. Where was that all year?
Because they didn't against Colgate, and they were not Colgate, Charleston, and they didn't against Grand Canyon. That Grand Canyon game was like one of the most ridiculous games I've ever seen in my life. First of all, but yeah, they didn't defend against them, and then they played North Carolina, who's the number one seed in their region, and they just what happened?
Yeah. They went cold. Bama went cold. Oh, no, excuse me. North Carolina went cold down the stretch. I thought there was some questionable decision making at the end. Baycott blew a dunk, but like Jalen Withers goes in the game and is a guy that I think shoots in the 20s or the low 30s from three. He like pulls a three in a one possession game with a minute and a half left.
15 seconds left on the shot clock.
Like, yeah, so that was very, very questionable. I wouldn't have played him at that point, especially had him take that shot. But yeah, North Carolina, like they had chances to kind of put that one away or at least keep a little bit of a lead, and it just didn't happen. And then Grant Nelson, I mean, oh my God, that was one of the best performances of the entire tournament was
Yeah,
that game. He blocked shots. He's a 26% three-point shooter. He knocked down both of them. He hit one off the dribble to give him a five to extend the lead to five late in the game. Like he just took over. He grabbed every rebound. Like that second half that Grant Nelson played. Keep in mind, this is the same guy that had 6 points combined in the first two games against Charleston and Grand Canyon.
yeah,
He just took over. He just took over. And Mark Sears is awesome.
he is awesome.
Mark Sears is terrific. He had another really good game yesterday. Rylan Griffin was really good in the North Carolina game. Like they seem to be the one team that's at least knocking shots down. Them in North Carolina State, it seemed like today. I mean, Marquette was abysmal. Duke was bad in the second half today. Um, Tennessee, I mean, late in the game, Tennessee really couldn't get anything to go.
Yeah.
So they were at least knocking them down. That's the thing with Alabama. It's yeah, they can score, they can shoot the lights out, but is that play style sustainable in a 6 game do or die tournament where you don't have much room for error? One bad night could send you packing, could send you home. But
And I
they've been
haven't
fair.
had it yet.
Credit to them. I might have my differences with Nate Oates because he hates the mid-range shot, but that dude, and this isn't even his best team. I'd say the team in 2021 and last year were better, and this one
Yeah.
makes the Final Four. Shows you how good he's been and what he's building there. They're not a basketball school just yet, Kyle, but he's got them. He's got Bama in a position where they might be a football and the basketball school. I mean, he's really building something good down there.
We'll see. I mean, Nick Saban retiring, Kalen DeBoer takes over the football program. We'll see what happens with that. But yeah, this basketball program has really come around um, under NATO. It's been It's been cool to see. I mean, obviously, like you love seeing different teams win. Obviously, a lot of the same teams do win. You have the Blue Bloods and everything like that. But it's been they play a hectic but fun brand of basketball. And Mark Sears is amazing. Grant Nelson's really come on. It's been good to see. One more thing before we move on from the tournament. It's gonna be a little shorter episode today. Obviously, there's really only two main things to focus on: the tournament and the transfer portal, which we're gonna get to in a second. But before we move on from the tournament, I did want to shout out Dalton Connect of Tennessee. 37 points in the Elite Eight today. Uh, he's had an incredible tournament. He is deserving of every praise that he gets. He is an incredible scorer. I know he missed some shots late down the stretch. He was probably tired from playing the entire game, and having to carry the offensive load because nobody on Tennessee really contributed that much. Um, Dalton Connect's a player. He's a player. It's been very, very fun to see him play. So just wanted to give a shout out to him real quick.
Also, give a shout out to Edey while you're at it. 40 and
I
16.
yes, yes.
40. All you losers out there that say this guy isn't good and he's just tall, you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind.
I don't think he's not good. I think it's definitely inflated by his height, but he's also improved a lot over the last 2 years, and I will give him his flowers for that. 40 and 16 and an Elite Eight game against a top five defense in the country is
And he
it's
sat
something.
33 seconds. He played
Yeah.
almost all of this game. I can't stand these people. You don't like it when people gun 53s and then there's a team that's got a monstrous center, so they pound it inside all the time, and they don't like that either.
Well, there's
What,
no
what are we
winning.
supposed to do here?
There's no winning.
What are we supposed to do here?
I will
So
say
he's
I
good,
hate the officiating around Edey, and I've said that. I think he gets more calls out of proportion than the normal person would get, but he's also 7'4".
and people slap at him, and they're really physical. He gets triple
Yeah.
teamed. Like, look, a foul's a foul. Like, yes, there's. I'm not going to deny that there's some. You'll see videos on Twitter where it's like, where was the foul here? Like that, But
Yeah.
that's not every single call. Like every
No,
single
it's not
call,
every
that
single
he's
call.
not bullshit.
No.
So nah, you're a loser if you don't think Matt Painter and Purdue are good and you think he's just tall. He's really good at basketball. He had 40 and 16 today, Kyle, in an
He
Elite Eight
did.
game. In a
He
game
did.
where the implications were their redemption season tour goes on, they make their first Final Four since 1980. Really good. 40 and 16 in an Elite Eight game, Kyle.
It's
That's
pretty
pretty damn
good.
good. That's pretty damn good.
That's pretty good. And
Would not let him lose. That was pretty incredible.
it was, yeah. I mean, incredibly good way to describe it. But also, fun fact too, before we move on. If you are a one seed and you do lose to a 16 seed, there's a 100% chance that you're going to make the Final Four, statistically speaking, historically speaking. So, you know, it's not the worst thing in the world if you ever lose to a one seed, because you got a good chance of making the Final Four, according to history. I don't make the rules. All right, Cope. While this NCAA tournament's been going on, the transfer portal has also been absolutely insane. I think we are well into the thousands of players who have decided to enter the transfer portal, looking to move schools, whether it's the first time, second time, third time, fourth time. Uh, it's kind of crazy how many times you can transfer in this day and age. A discussion for another day, as I've been saying, though. But we've had some Big Five transfer portal news as well. There's been a few names on each team that have looking to start fresh elsewhere. Don't know if we need to get into every single name on the list, but Cope, there's definitely some notable ones. So which one or a couple that surprised you that you saw when you got the notification that they'd be entering the portal?
So I'd say the two that kind of stuck out to me the most, well, three, I guess. We'll start in University City. I'll go with Justin Moore, leaving. He's a Philadelphia guy. Had a definitely improved this year and was a starting point guard on a very good CAA team that unfortunately came up just a little bit short in their conference tournament. So to have him leave, I definitely was a little surprised by that. He's a local guy. I thought it was a good spot for him. And even though there's going to be a mass exodus at Drexel because they're losing guys to graduation, you're going to have Amari Williams in the portal, and rightfully so. I mean, after giving Drexel the years that he did, someone's going to give him a whole lot of money. So I think he definitely deserves to test his ability in a higher conference. But you're losing one of the best players the conference has had in a long time. So yeah, Justin Moore leaving, I thought he could be a vet that could, now going into his junior year, he could be a guy that that Zach Spiker could bank on. So I was surprised by that. Lynn Greer, I guess, was a little surprising. Now it's his inability to shoot and be a real threat from the 3-point line at all times is something that doesn't really fit with what Billy Lang has. But his defense and his mid range game, I guess, was a nice change of pace. But if St. Joe's can bring in somebody, Xavier Brown's going to assume the point guard role next year. So if you can just bring in another guy to replace more of a Cam Brown, like you already have your internal replacement for Lingria, but now it's, hey, can we get a 3-and-D guy in here to start and take Cam Brown's role? Xavier Brown starts in that starting lineup. I guess that's the best way to go. And then in that sense, I guess Lingria was kind of out of the picture. Like, I think they can bring in somebody else that could fit a little bit better because you already have your point guard of the future in Xavier Brown, who's terrific. The most surprising thing about the Lingria situation, though, Kyle, is that Villanova and Temple are rumored to be interested in him.
Yeah.
So that could be, I believe, the last inter Big Five conference transfer was Marvin O'Connor, who I think was St. Joe's. Was he St. Joe's to Villanova?
I'm not 100% sure.
I think. I'm going to fact check myself because I definitely don't want to be wrong. But I believe Marvin O'Connor was the last inter Big Five transfer that we had. It would be interesting if if Lynn Greer did the same, and hey, his father is the chief of staff of Temple men's basketball, so potentially
Yeah.
that's a landing spot for him. He would just move. I don't know what bus you get from University City to North Philadelphia, but definitely not
Yeah, I
far.
don't know.
Yes, Marvin O'Connor, Villanova to St. Joseph. Sorry, I thought it
Okay.
was the other way around. Started
Oh, all good.
at Villanova, went to St. Joseph. So I believe he's the last guy to do that. And then um, you look at Penn, Tyler Perkins. We knew Clark Slackert and Laskowski. They're out of eligibility. They have to go elsewhere.
Yeah.
Um, but Tyler Perkins, was going to step into a huge role and was really going to assume the scoring duties with Slackert leaving. And obviously, they need to bring in a point guard, but that's a huge building block for Steve Donahue's program that's now out the door. So he's really good. Tyler Perkins is talented enough to play elsewhere. As a freshman, you look at how physically strong he is and how well he's built. He doesn't look like a freshman, and he certainly doesn't play like one either. So it's it's kind of a two-edged sword here because he is way good enough to move out of the Ivy League and go play elsewhere. And I'm sure that, he's going to get offered quite a bit of money to play at a higher level. But that's really a crushing blow to Penn. I mean,
Yeah.
that was a real gem that they were able to get last year. Um, and even as a freshman, even with the Slackard injury, he really assumed the scoring duties and played really well and showed you how good of a player he could be. So really unfortunate that Penn is going to lose him. So those three guys especially, three of the bigger names. There's an exodus going on at LaSalle with Brickus and Brantley and Gill and Dayshawn Shepard leaving. But, Dayshawn Shepard had tested the transfer portal last year. And for Jameer Brickus, he's played there for 4 years. He also has shown, he's shown that he's enough of a dog and is a good enough player that after spending 4 years at LaSalle, getting in the top 10, I believe he's eighth all time on the all time assist list. Like, I don't think anybody would hold anything against him for wanting to go, for one last year, go see how he can fare at a higher level, or another school to potentially go play in the NCAA tournament. So those guys, I'm not really too um surprised about the LaSalle guys. Plus, like, you know, we're kind of jumping to conclusions here, I guess. But I did ask Fran Dunphy about his future at the A10 tournament. He said he's going to talk to Daniel Lau and he's going to talk to Osh Purry about that. He'll talk to the president and the AD about what they kind of want him to do. But I look at those transfers, Kyle, and I don't think that sounds good for Coach Dunphy coaching another season. But that's just me. And if that's going to be the case, then I'm sure those guys would want out and want to go test elsewhere if Dunphy's not going to be there. But those three guys, Justin Moore, Lynn Greer, and Tyler Perkins, those really surprised me a little bit. I think are like three of the bigger names that are on there right now. And we're nowhere near done. I believe there's over 1,000 guys in the portal, Kyle. We're not slowing down anytime soon.
No, especially with the tournament still happening, which First of all, I don't want to spend too much time on this before I get into my points about the guys who have entered their names in the portal, but I think the portal opened too soon. I don't think the portal should be open before the tournament or like while the tournament's going on. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, number one, I don't think that teams in the tournament should be spending any resources or time to scout players or talk to players while their team is playing for a national championship. Um, I think that's silly. I think you got to prepare for, the ultimate prize. And a lot of these teams, I mean, you look at NC State, their entire lineup this year is transfers. Um, it just, I think it's silly. I don't think it should be a thing. I think it should be after the NCAA tournament is when all these transfers should be able to be open. I think the transfer portal is a good thing, net positive overall. I just don't think the timing of it's right. So that's first and foremost. Second of all, yeah, I was gonna your second point is what I was gonna get to. I don't know if it's surprising per se, but the LaSalle transfers definitely were notable. Specifically Brantley and Brickus. I mean, they haven't done a ton of winning at LaSalle, if we're just gonna be frank. So I don't blame them for wanting to test the waters and see where else they can go, or maybe they can make an NCAA tournament, like you said. Um, I think from what I was going to say was it just kind of stinks. They are one of the better backcourts in the A10. They've been really fun to watch for the South fans and for Big Five fans in general. And it would have been really cool to see them have one more year at it. Maybe they could make a run at something in the A10. But I think ultimately, like you said, what it comes down to is will Coach Dunphy coach again? Uh, if there's this max exodus, if you include Gill and Shepard in this, and I know we talked about Shepard testing the waters last year too. I feel like that might be telling us something. Maybe it's just players wanting to go somewhere else and win. Could 100% be that. Happens all the time. But Fran Dunphy's not one of those guys where people are just gonna leave. You know what I mean? People love playing for Fran Dunphy's Mr. Big Five for a reason. It seems like from what we've observed during the last season that those two guards specifically like playing for Dunphy. Um, it seems like even though they haven't had the most success, they've created a fun environment. And it just, it might not be the most surprising. I know the other three you mentioned too were more surprising, I think, in general, but it definitely this would stick the most because I think, I don't want to see the LaSalle program me even worse than it has been, unfortunately, lately. If Fran Dunphy does retire, maybe they bring someone in who will revitalize it even more. I'm not going to be the judge of that right now. It's not fair to me to be the judge of that or you to be the judge of that right now or anybody. But it just kind of sucks to see their name in the portal and knowing that the talent on the roster that they did have, which wasn't bad at all at the top end, might not be there next year and they might have to retool a little bit. So that's things. But Lingrier, I think, was the most surprising for me. And I was also really surprised to see Temple on the list. Um, Not surprising to see him on the list that they would contact him, but that he would potentially be considering it. Because personally, I don't know if it makes a ton of sense other than just the nostalgia and wanting to play for his dad's school. I don't know, like for him, I know he probably wants to win, and he got pretty close to playing at the tournament this year. And yes, X Brown's pushing him out of a starting spot, it seems like. I don't know if he's going to win at Temple. Now, granted, Temple technically got closer than they did this year. Uh, I don't know how still. We can have a lot of time to dissect that too. But I think Villanova makes perfect sense for Lingrier. I mean, obviously just cross town there. Obviously Temple is too, but you know, a program that seems like it's more positioned to be able to make a run in the future, right now at least. So that's just me personally, but I was very surprised to see his name on the list too. But when you think about it, kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. Definitely give Temple some defense. Give a guy who can create his own shot in the mid range a little bit that they
It would be
really
great for
seem
the
to
Owls
have
roster.
missed.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think roster wise, there's actually some sense here, and at the same time, like him going to play for his dad would be a really really good storyline.
Yeah.
I would imagine there's nobody that's doing a better recruiting job for Lingrier the third right now than his father.
I would agree.
Um, so yeah, I think it could actually make sense here, and to bring in a vet guy as well, to bring in an older guy as well. Um, I think it'd be a good move. However, if I'm Temple, I know they're bringing in Aiden Tobiason and then Dylan Battie next year. We need big men. I have my Temple shirt on. I probably shouldn't have said we like
Hey,
that.
that's okay. We're
Look,
alumni.
we're
We're
alumni.
alumni.
We could say that. Um, a big guy would be terrific. A big guy'd be
Big guy
terrific
would be terrific.
because I don't think Sam Hoffman is another year. And if that's the case, we're down to Steve Settle and Akpomo is in the
Transfer portal.
transfer portal. Not that if we're being real, Kai, that's really not a big
No,
deal.
no
He,
offense to Emmanuel Akpobo. He didn't see the floor a ton.
yeah, he didn't see the floor, and it's not like he was not an impact player at all when he was on there. So a big man would be great if they could grab one of them. But I do see the sense here. Like I do see the sense that Lindbergh makes, point being. Now I
Yeah.
think they could also use some more shooting as
Yeah.
well.
Well,
It's
that's the
not
other
as
thing
crazy
too.
to say about an Adam Fisher team,
Yeah.
but I'm confident that Adam Fisher will bring in more shooters if they have room, and then with the two freshmen coming in, they could certainly help in that category as well. So I think there's actually some sense here. Shockingly, it would just be cool to see an inner Big Five transfer. For the first time since the transfer portal's kind of
Oh,
blown up.
yeah, 100%. And like, I don't think it didn't make sense for Temple's roster construction. Like, I think that would be a good fit. I mean, obviously, veteran leadership. Maybe he's not the best shooter that Adam Fisher could have, but like someone who can command an offense. He's shown that. Also, other intangibles too. I mean, he's a pretty good rebounding guard. Plays good defense. All
Mhm.
things you would want. And of course, there's the Temple connection as well. I was just more so saying if he wants to win, I don't know right now in year 200 Adam Fisher if this is, if that's the best situation for him wanting to make a tournament or whatnot. But crazier things have happened in March as we've seen this year. So, and as we almost saw with the Owls with this version. And I do think Temple will be better next year than they were this year. So maybe that would work out, and it would be really really cool to see him play in a Temple uniform. Being also that his dad was a Temple legend as well. So yeah, craziness, Cope, craziness in the month of March. Unfortunately, as of this recording, it is the last day of March, so you guys will be seeing this on the first day of April. Um, I was trying to think of an April Fool's joke just there, couldn't do it. It's okay, I got plenty of time. Um, but yeah, I think that's pretty much all I got on this. And Cope, last thoughts here on the Final Four and anything else transfer wise?
Yeah, real quick on the Final Four. UConn's going to beat Alabama, and
Yeah.
then Purdue is going to beat NC State. And then I think that's the best game you could have asked for, Kyle, because I think these are the two best teams that have played in college basketball this season. I still think UConn will win it all. I don't believe anybody will beat them. But if Zach Edey puts up 40 and 16 again, Kyle, it's going to be hard for UConn to beat them. So that's what I think is going to happen. I still believe Connecticut is going to win it all, but a UConn Purdue game, I think if you're a fan of this sport, I think that's the game that you've kind of wanted going into this season. I think those are clearly, along with Houston, have kind of been that upper tier. Tennessee tried to get in, Arizona tried to get in, North Carolina tried to get in, but it was very clear that there was three teams that were above the rest. And to be quite honest with you, as good as Houston was, Kyle, as good as Houston was, I believe that Purdue and UConn are just a notch above them in that very, very top tier. So as a basketball fan, I think you're rooting for that, and I think it would be a terrific championship game, but I still think Connecticut will cut the nets down. They'll go back to back. And I know you've seen that video circulating on Twitter, Kyle, of I think it's January 2021. After a loss to Villanova, Dan Hurley said,
We're
better get us
calling.
now because it's coming. And people forgot, I think, for a little bit, in the late Kevin Ollie years, how good of a program UConn can be. They win the championship this year, they're tied with Connecticut. Or excuse me, they're tied with Carolina
Yeah.
with 6, I believe,
So
which would be more than Duke. Like
it's a
that
blue
puts
blood.
them in the top three, and they kind of always have been,
Yeah.
quite honestly. And that's kind of what I'm rooting for because I want people to realize, like, hey, like these guys are effing good, and Hurley's done a terrific job. I mean, offensively, they are spectacular. They don't have a weakness on offense. They run so much good stuff. They're always in constant movement. You help defenses compromise. Like they're really a sight to see on offense, but just in general. I mean, they're just a buzzsaw, man.
Yeah.
Just an absolute buzzsaw. It seems like you can keep it. they still will have a 5, 6 point lead when they're playing terribly, and it's like, oh well, the other team's still in it, and then you forget that they're actually good. They start playing well and hitting shots, and they blow you out of the water.
It's a wrap.
They just blow you out.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy to think about, but like UConn's been the most successful college basketball team of our lifetime. I mean, since 1999, they've won all five of their championships right now.
Mhm.
Like, that's crazy. I mean, you don't normally think about that because Duke's obviously been successful. They've won a few. North Carolina's won a few. I'm trying to think of another. I mean, Kentucky's been successful. They've only won the one, but they've
Kansas has won two. Villanova's
Kansas
won
won
two.
too. Yep. Like you think of those, I think first, especially like UNC, Duke, Kansas, because they're the more traditional ones. But UConn's won five championships in the last 25 years, and they have a chance to add a sixth next week. So they've been the most successful team of our lifetime.
Yeah.
And even though there was some rough years there, a few years when they were still lingering in the American after that 2014 run, uh, they're back. I'd say they're back. I mean, they won a championship last year and the Final Four this year. Poised to win back to back. Obviously, that Purdue potential matchup will be no easy feat. There's definitely a chance that Purdue wins that game if that game does happen. I mean, it would be a very close game. Um, yeah. So shout out to UConn. I mean, they're a really great program, and they've done it under three different head coaches too. Obviously, yeah, Jim Calhoun is a legend. Kevin Ollie had a great run. Um, and now Dan Hurley. So he was right. They were coming and they are here. So yeah, it's gonna be a problem. Everybody thought Nova was gonna run the Big East forever, but that is not the case. And hopefully they can get back there one day. But yeah. With that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, we very, very much appreciate it. Make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you listen to our audio only versions on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And of course, make sure you follow us on social media at Big Five Pod on Instagram and Twitter. Enjoy the Final Four. Enjoy the national championship. We'll probably record after the national championship sometime next week. Um, and also really, really, really quick, because Cope, this is also really important too. Uh, the women's tournament has been insane. We definitely can't finish this recording without talking about the women's tournament really, really quick. It's been insane. On the day of this recording, we're going to have Juju Watkins and Paige Beckers going up against each other, and we're going to have Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and LSU in the rematch of last year's championship. That tournament's probably been even more insane than the men's tournament's been. So definitely want to give a shout out real quick. Definitely couldn't let that go unnoticed. But we will talk to you guys next week after all of those things happen, and we'll see you then.